way I raise it in class to the students is, when did Jesus become white? You know, and when you look at the earliest portraits of Jesus, guy ain't white. When you look at archaeological remains of Jewish men from Galilee, northern Judea during the Roman period, they're dark-skinned, olive-skinned people. And by about the 3rd century, 4th century, when Christianity was accepted by the Roman Empire, especially under Constantine, it was being promoted as a glue for his empire. The image of Jesus began to change to a European image, European face. So instead of wearing clothing that a Jewish man would wear, with the beard of a Jewish man and the skin tone of a 1st century Jewish man, now Jesus was white, and he was wearing Italian sandals and an Italian toga. And, you know, it's recognizable as Jesus, but it's, the art is now depicting something else. So the artistic image is a commentary on what actually happened, what Jesus was actually like, and we really can't know much about that. There's just no evidence for it.
Think about artists in the Renaissance and in the medieval period who they do not depict Jesus as a 1st century Roman Jew in the way that you're talking about. I mean, they depict him as, if you're painting in the 14th century, you paint Jesus as a 14th century king, you know, and at some point after that, that people make Jesus, to me, that people make Jesus white. What people are doing when they're painting Jesus, like in the medieval period, is they're doing the same thing that African Americans do when they paint Jesus as a black man, which he was not, you know. They're painting Jesus to look like him, which is, of course, the truth of Christianity, that God became one of us. And so we paint God to look like us, you know. But then at some point in the canon, Jesus does become white. And it's not early on, it's later, after he's been being painted as white for centuries. It's probably when we begin to export Jesus, when we colonize other peoples, and the chief way of colonizing, one of the chief ways after economic ways of colonizing people, are religious ways of colonizing. And we take white Jesus to Africa and show white Jesus to them. I mean, I think that's when it becomes not just Jesus is who we are, because that's when it becomes an us versus them. That's when we're saying you're different than us, and we don't want to paint Jesus as black, even though it would make you understand him better. The joke, of course, is that the missionaries who did that were the most successful. Jesuits did that in India and were successful in ways they couldn't have been otherwise. And when American Protestants began to do that in the early 20th century in China, I mean, they light a flame that hasn't burned out yet. I mean, the Chinese government says there are, I don't know, like a few million Christians because they're part of the state-sanctioned church. But it's probably more likely that there are 300 times as many Christians there in these house churches that are not state-sanctioned, because Christianity is back to a pre-Roman Empire subversive movement. And it took so well because they were given a Jesus they identified with. I think it's about colonialism. I think that's about colonialism, that when we colonize other peoples, we stop painting Jesus to look like us, and we start painting Jesus to look not like them. You know, where all of a sudden Jesus becomes sort of, the image of Jesus becomes sort of codified. He's white. He's not black, he's white, you know. Whereas before, people were just painting him or depicting him to look like they looked, you know, because it's natural to depict someone who we don't know what he looked like to look like us, especially when the theology is he became one of us. He lived and died like one of us. You know, he took on a form like one of us. So yeah, but then at some point, it's not that he looks like us, it's that he doesn't look like them, you know, that he's different than them.